So, the United States Navy has been noticeably more active in the Caribbean lately. Destroyers, littoral ships, surveillance flights, all moving through a region we normally associate with cruise ships, retirees, and cocktails with those little umbrellas in them. Washington says it's all routine, business as usual. But if you look at the pattern, the history, this deserves a much deeper and closer look. Let's dig deeper. Open source ship trackers and defense reporting show a clear increase in the US naval presence across the Caribbean. Not dramatic, not theatrical, but consistent. More ship rotations near Puerto Rico, more Coast Guard integration, more surveillance activity near Cuban and Venezuelan airspace, and more exercises with Caribbean states. There's no major press release explaining this shift. It's simply just happening. So what's the official explanation? The US has an all too familiar explanation. Counter-narcotics and anti-trafficking of the drug and humankind. These missions do happen, they are real, but historically they've also been the catch-all label for a very broad range of activities. So it's the history that makes all this very suspicious. This region has never been geopolitically neutral ground for the United States. The Caribbean is where Washington has, for over a century, projected power, prevented rivals from gaining influence, and intervened when convenient. Take Cuba for example, the Bay of Pigs, decades of intelligence operations, and counter-surveillance. Or Venezuela herself, political involvement stretching from the Chavez era to now. Nicaragua, the CIA-backed Contra operations in the 80s. Or Panama, like the full-scale invasion in 1989 by the US. The point is simple. When the US moves military assets quietly into the Caribbean, it usually means something beyond drugs and migration is in play. So why now? Well, number one, China's growing presence in Latin America. So China is investing heavily in Latin America and the Caribbean. Infrastructure, ports, police technology, diplomacy, money loans, energy deals, and even the occasional Navy visit. To Washington, increased Chinese influence in the Western Hemisphere is not a casual deployment. It is a strategic provocation. 2. Venezuela's ongoing instability. So Venezuela is heading into another uncertain period, both economically and politically. Whenever instability arises there, the United States positions assets nearby. Something as a contingency. Something as leverage. 3. The Panama Canal factor. The Panama Canal is one of the world's most important trade arteries. China operates major ports at both ends of this canal. Any shift in global tensions makes the canal strategically sensitive again. And 4. Preparing for a global strain. The US military is stretched across Europe, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific. If it expects global tensions to increase, the first step is always the same. Secure the immediate hemisphere closer to them. So, what can we see between the lines? Now, without being dramatic, here's my strategic reading. When a superpower quietly adjusts naval posture in a historically sensitive region, it usually means one of three things. They expect instability, political or economic. They expect a rival to make a move, diplomatically, military, or financially. Or 3, they're preparing their own posture for wider global contingencies. None of these are conspiracies, they are patterns, and patterns we've seen repeated across the last century. So why should Australia pay attention? At a first glance, this looks far from home. But US global posture is interconnected. If Washington shifts attention into the Caribbean, pressure lifts elsewhere, potentially in the Pacific. That affects AUKUS timelines, deployments, coordination, and the overall balance of US presence in the Australian region. The Caribbean may be geographically distant, but strategically it's part of the same global system Australia depends on. So what to watch out for next? Here are the indicators that I believe will tell us this is more than just routine movement. If there's any significant political deterioration in Venezuela, a China-Caribbean port or infrastructure deal, Russian naval visits to Cuba or Venezuela, expanded US operations out of Puerto Rico or Guantanamo, the sudden increase in counter-narcotic missions, or new funding for US Southern Command in Congress. If 2 or more of these happen, then this isn't routine presence, it's preparation for something. So that's the deeper story behind the US Navy's quietly expanding role in the Caribbean. Nothing dramatic, nothing sensational, but definitely not random. Thanks for watching the video if you made it this far, and remember, nothing is the full story unless you dig deeper.